Hi, everyone. You're listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. I have a touch of laryngitis, as some of you longtime listeners might be able to hear, but we're going to make the most of it. Our guest is Jessie Sheehan, recipe developer and author of 4 baking books, including the brand new salty, cheesy, herby, crispy Snackable Bakes, which is out tomorrow. Jessie is also the host of Cherry Bombe's baking podcast, She's My Cherry Pie. Each Saturday, Jessie talks to the most talented bakers and pastry chefs in the country and does a deep dive into their signature bakes. If you haven't checked out the show yet, please do. It is a fun, relaxing listen, and you will learn a lot. I know I have. Tell all the bakers in your life. She's My Cherry Pie is also the #1 baking podcast in America, which we are very proud of. Anyway, I'm thrilled to welcome Jessie back to the show and for all of you to learn about her career and her dramatic pivots. A lot of takeaways from Jessie's journey. And of course, she tells us all about her new book. Stay tuned for our chat. By the way, Jessie's cookbook tour kicks off tomorrow in New York City, and Cherry Bombe is co-hosting her New York, San Francisco, Boston, and Chicago events. You can snag tickets at cherrybombe.com. I'll be at the Boston and Chicago stops and would love to see you. Big thanks to our friends at Kerrygold and King Arthur for supporting Jessie's tour. We've got so much going on at Cherry Bombe, as per usual. We just revealed our fall issue cover with ice cream queen Jenny Britton. The issue is dedicated to the creative class and packed with stories and recipes from some fascinating folks. If you love the intersection of art and food and culture, you will love this issue. You can pick up a copy at your favorite culinary bookstore or magazine shop or boutique. Places like Yowie in Philadelphia, Moon Palace Books in Minneapolis, and Heath Ceramics in San Francisco. Also, we have a special surprise magazine announcement tomorrow, so check out our Instagram for the reveal. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Jessie Sheehan, welcome to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Thank you for having me, Kerry. Really excited to be here.
Jessie hosts our baking podcast, She's My Cherry Pie. It is the #1 baking podcast in the country. So congratulations, Jessie. That's a big achievement.
Thank you so much. And also, can I just say for the record that it was your brilliant idea, not only to have a baking podcast, but what's cool about the podcast is that we do this deep dive into the guest's signature bake, a recipe. So it sets it apart. It's not just an interview situation. What I love hearing from listeners is people are really learning things and think it's really cool to hear a recipe be kind of broken down the way we do.
It's delightful and it's nerdy at the same time.
Yes. And I would say delightful nerd would kind of be a little, that describes me. Maybe a cool, delightful nerd. Can nerds be cool? I think so.
100%. I can totally bake. I can follow a recipe and make great things, but I would never in a million years call myself a baker. But I love listening to the show. And I think it does 2 things for the listener. I think it's both a very relaxing listen, which is kind of something that we all need these days, and wildly informative. I learn about all this equipment I never knew about and techniques. I mean, really just amazing stuff.
I totally agree with you. What happens is that Kerry and the team, they always send me the recording just so I can make tweaks and make sure everything flows. And our amazing producer, Jenna, does the edits. But I was just listening to one in which a guest tells us about these huge biscuit cutters, but they're the size of cakes. But you use them to cut out cake from a sheet pan. And of course, I've heard of that. Natasha was on the pod and Christina was on the pod and they both talked about them.
Natasha Pickowitz and Christina Tosi.
Yes, sorry to be dropping one name. That's an example of a tool that I do not have that I need to get. I feel like even professional bakers will learn something from the podcast.
Absolutely. Joanne Chang, remember all the techniques she talked about? The window pane? Yes. Is that where you kind of stretch the dough out?
Stretch the dough to make sure it's proofed properly. She and I talked about her sticky buns, her world famous sticky buns. She talked a lot about the window pane and how once you can sort of pull the dough a teeny bit and see through it like a window pane, then you know it's properly proofed and it doesn't rip.
And Joanne is the founder of Flour in Boston. And Jessie, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, will actually be stopping by there as part of her book tour. But it is such a relaxing listen, which is why we wanted to drop it on Saturday mornings. The idea being you could make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and just hang out and listen to it.
Totally.
And start your day.
I feel like a lot of listeners are on morning walks. They're always telling me that they take me on their walk, which I love. And I bumped into someone at Zoe Bakes, Zoe Francois' book talk last week, who just came up to me and said, I'm here for Zoe, but I just have to tell you I love the podcast. And she said what she loves about it, and I love this, is even if she doesn't recognize the name of the guest or recognize the baked good, she now finds herself just listening religiously regardless because she'll learn something. So I loved that.
I do want to talk about the name because we did struggle to come up with a name and then landed on She's My Cherry Pie. And some of you may or may not know this, but it's the name of kind of like glam pop metal
70s,
song.
80s?
No, from the 80s.
80s.
With the most sexist video ever. But anyway, if you watch it today, it's definitely cringy. But we decided to kind of reclaim She's My Cherry Pie.
Now it like flows off the tongue. I'm like, oh yeah, She's My Cherry Pie, of course. It's so perfect.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for all the hard work you've put into the show. It's not easy, but you make it seem effortless.
Oh, thanks.
So thank you. Jessie has a great backstory that she doesn't really get to talk about on the show because she's interviewing other people. So I want her to talk about it a little bit today, and I think it'll be very inspiring for a lot of you who are either making your own career pivots or trying to figure out your path forward, but also that you could do anything at any age.
Career changers.
Also,
Career changers unite, and also older ones.
Let me see if I have this straight.
Okay.
Did you want to be an actress first or a lawyer first?
Actress. Yeah. No, I was an actress from like...
Or actor.
Yeah,
we say actor today.
Yeah. Hello. Sorry. I was an actor when I graduated from college for about 6 years.
Wait, you were a working actor for 6 years?
Well, working actor with a restaurant job. Do you remember 7A on the corner of 7th Street and Avenue A? That was where I worked. And then I had other restaurant jobs. Remember Nick and Eddie? Anyway, I had lots of restaurant jobs. It was my one true love from when I was in 5th grade until I was in my late 20s. This is kind of the line I always say, but I still think it's true. It's like there's no meritocracy. It doesn't matter if you work really hard. And it also doesn't really matter if you're really good because you still may not get to where you want to be. And so I was tired of getting on an airplane and sitting next to someone who's like, oh, what do you do? And I'd be like, I'm an actor. And they would be like, oh, what restaurant? Ha, 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 ha. Meaning like you must actually be a waitress. And they were sadly not wrong.
Were you booking any jobs?
Yes, I did a lot of regional theater. So I would leave the city and go and do theater in different states.
What were some of your favorite roles?
Oh, good question.
And can you sing? Were you doing musical theater?
I cannot sing at all. Tragically, no. I would say one of my favorite roles, this was actually, I worked at the Actors Theater of Louisville for a year in the early 90s. There was a play called La Bête. I played a maid who couldn't speak and would only tell the other actors in the show, the other characters in the show, could only communicate with them via pantomime. So it was an incredible opportunity where everything I said had to be pantomimed. It was a comedy. And I had a crazy, awesome dress with these huge, exaggerated hips. So like it was a hoop skirt situation, but the hoop only went out to the sides. But anyway, that was a really fun role. I always liked being funny, and that role really spoke to me. But I did that for a while until I just felt like sad. I just was sad.
Was it a lot of auditioning?
A lot of auditioning and a lot of rejection.
We'll be right back with today's guest. Be sure to check out the events calendar on cherrybombe.com. We've got a lot going on and would love to see you in one of the cities where we're hosting events. There's Jessie Sheehan's cookbook tour. There's Jubilee 2025 in Manhattan next year, and this October's Jubilee Wine Country in Calistoga, California. You can find tickets and all the details on cherrybombe.com. Hopefully you heard this episode with Liza Colon-Zayas from The Bear, who plays Tina, and she talked about decades of rejection.
100%. I mean, that's the thing. I say this about my experience, but one could argue I did give up. I mean, yes, that I listened to that episode. That is 100% true. People go years and years. There was a character in some show I was just watching that I adored. And of course, this is the worst story because I have no details to add to it. But the idea being that the lead actor, who's fantastic, couldn't get work for 20 years and now is huge. But anyway, I was an actor, and funnily enough, in bringing full circle to podcasting, right at the end of my acting career, when I had applied to law school and was headed to law school, my acting agent, suddenly started getting me tons of voiceover work. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course I'm getting what I've always, because believe you me, by the end, Kerry, all I wanted was to work. I was like, okay, I'll just do commercials. I don't even care anymore. So I think that's kind of interesting, that like there was a voice moment back in the day.
Law school.
Yeah.
Did you pluck that out of thin air, or was there something always in the back of your head about law?
No, it was plucked, but not plucked very far from my family because my dad was the dean of a law school and he had been a working lawyer, et cetera, and a law professor. So it was part of how I grew up. It was part of our conversation at home. But I really did it just because I love school. Again, back to cool, delightful nerd. I love school. I love learning. I love writing. I wanted to go to school to do all of those things. And then I thought, I'll probably like being a lawyer. Of course, I did not. And my father kept saying to me, are you sure there's a good idea? I was like, yes.
What kind of law did you want to practice?
So I didn't even really know, Kerry. It wasn't the best decision. Peeps, this is not the moment where you're taking notes and saying I should go to law school. I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to be a litigator, like somebody who argued in court, again, using my acting background, my fantastic voiceover voice. Using all of those skills, I know I didn't want to be like a contract lawyer and sit in a room with other lawyers writing contracts. What I ended up doing is pursuing entertainment law. To me, that seemed like it would be a sexy area of the law. And I thought, I'll be working maybe with movie stars and musicians and this. And I ended up working for a small firm that did music litigation.
Well, it makes sense to me because you can talk the talk.
100%. 100%. And there was something that appealed to me about that world. And it still does. And I'd clerked for a judge before I started practicing. That I enjoyed. I was at the federal courthouse in Manhattan, listening to really cool cases, and it was all writing. I clerked for a year, I practiced for 2, went on maternity leave. And listeners, I am still on maternity leave.
I didn't know that. I thought you started baking on the side when you were a lawyer.
Not at all. Not at all. I left my law firm when my older son, who's now 21, was born, maternity leave action. I was like, bye, see you guys soon. And never went back. And then about 2 years later, I had 2 little boys. It wasn't even that I had started to bake a ton, Kerry. It was that I loved sweets. I do have a voracious sweet tooth and now salt tooth. I loved baking. I was baking a little bit at home. These were the days of not only Martha Stewart Living, and one of my best friends, Anna, was an editor there, so I had a subscription, etc. There was also, Martha had this smaller magazine called Everyday Food, which I was obsessed with. I not only cooked from it, I baked from it. Somebody had given me an early Nigella Lawson book, Claudia Fleming, who's also been a guest on my pod, who I love so much. Claudia's book, The Last Course. All of these books had been gifted to me as my friends sort of recognized I was kind of into baking with these 2 little kids at home, and I was starting to bake a little bit. Basically, I went into a bakery in my neighborhood called Baked and literally just said, please, can I work for you for free? I just want to learn everything that you guys are doing. They thought I was insane because I was, to them, a very, very old lady, although I was in my mid to late 30s.
Were they suspect?
They certainly were not going to hire me. Just being an older person and a mom and being willing to kind of learn and work for free, that was pretty unique, pretty unusual. So they didn't quite know what to do with me.
Did they think you were a spy or wanted to open your own bakery?
Such a good question. I don't even think they thought that far ahead. I just think they thought no.
What did you learn from all of that? And I know you're a happy person. You've got great kids. You've got a great husband. You've got a really nice life. So you don't want to go back and be like, I wish I hadn't done that, because your life would be different now. But if you were to give advice to someone who thinks they maybe are not in the right profession, they do want to pivot, since you've done it a few times, looking back, what would you have done differently?
That's a good question. In fact, when I really think about it, I don't think I would change anything, because the acting feeds what I do today. The lawyering feeds what I do today. And I also feel like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I really do. And life is full of challenges, as we all know, and full of disappointment and full of rejection. And I know just now from having my new book out, it's so stressful and uncomfortable. My husband calls it compare and despair. This is an amazing cookbook season, as Kerry knows better than anyone, because I'm sure you've received a million books. An amazing cookbook season with an amazing group of cookbooks out there and writers out there. And it's a very competitive playing field right now. So I'm not saying that it all rolls off my back and I'm like, oh, no problem. But a long career of not getting everything I wanted at every step of the way, I think, has really fed me. So I wouldn't want to take out any of those steps that I've gone through, because they taught me a lot. Another way of answering it is, I just wish that when I was in my 20s, I had been interested in baking and it just started that way. But it just wasn't in the cards for me. I don't think I would have ever discovered baking if I hadn't been an actor, if I hadn't been a lawyer, and if I hadn't been a stay-at-home mom, because all of those things contributed to my realization of what I really wanted to do.
I think looking from the outside, you followed your passions and you realized when it was time to move on. I think that's maybe one of the things that you could teach folks.
Yes, I do think that's true. But people will ask me about my journey and ask me what advice I would have. One thing I would say is what I was trying to do by working for free, I was able to do that. Not everyone can just say, oh, okay. And I only did it like a few hours a week in the beginning. And then they paid me, I think like $9 an hour. But I would say that I just want to be cognizant of the fact that not everyone can do that. But if there is a way in your life that you can attempt to pursue the thing you want to pursue while still sort of working your job that, you know, puts food on the table, I do think that's a great beginning. I also think, at least in the food industry, it's much harder to do what I did now. I think baking and food are much trendier, sexier, to bring that word back, now than they were when I was doing this. And it's probably not as easy to just walk in and be like, hey, I didn't go to culinary school. I don't know anything. Will you teach me? But doesn't mean you can't try.
Well, there's no barrier to entry today. That's the difference. Thanks to social media. There are so many ways to learn. You don't have to pay for culinary school anymore. You can watch all the videos that are out there. And if you want to start creating and put things into the universe, the tools are there.
It's so true.
Jessie, I think another thing that you show everyone is you will never have one linear path. I think about so many people we're friends with, even myself. I didn't know I would own restaurants. I didn't know I would launch a magazine. I didn't know I would completely leave the career I thought I would have forever.
Yeah.
You're just a great example of that. That there's not one path, but sometimes when you turn around and look at all the different things that you've done, they start to make sense.
Also, something, and I listened to your episode with Reese Witherspoon's podcast company, and I loved learning. I know your story, obviously, but your experience of being offered a job and just being like, okay, I'm going to take it. I had no idea this was going to be my path, but I'm going to take it. I think that idea of being light on your feet, it's funny. I'm a very black and white person and a very rigid person, and it's really hard. I can like eat the same thing every morning for breakfast. It's a cliche, but don't ever say no. I almost never say no, just because I never know where something is going to lead me. Now, that means I'm like busier than I probably need to be because I'm maybe doing things I don't need to be doing. But I really believe in take whatever opportunity comes down the pike. And the only other thing I will say about both you and me is we're a little bit older in this industry than a lot of people. Like, I've been doing a lot of collaborative videos to kind of support and promote my new book. And all my peeps, I love them so much. They're all much younger than me. And it's fun. I mean, they're my pals. Doesn't matter. So to not be afraid of age.
Let's talk about your book.
Yay.
I know you're so proud of it.
I am.
The title's a mouthful. Tell us the title.
Okay, get ready. I hope you're sitting. Salty, cheesy, herby, crispy, snackable bakes.
How did you come up with the title?
So essentially, the book before this one was called Snackable Bakes, and it was an easy peasy baking book. So essentially, a book of sweet baked goods that all take about 20 minutes to assemble, usually are baked and ready to eat within an hour, call for ingredients that are already in your pantry, and only a bowl and a whisk and a spatula. There's no fancy equipment. Those are kind of my hallmarks or my definition of an easy peasy bake. There was definitely a moment for that book, pandemic-ish, and also, I don't know, I just think people appreciate being able to make something delicious, but in a very short amount of time. And so this book is essentially the savory sibling of that book.
That's a cute way to put it.
Yeah. All of the same tenets of an easy peasy bake, the short ingredient list and the short time that it takes to assemble something, but everything has cheese, herbs, is crispy, or salty. I can't even remember my own title. I think that savory baking, Erin McDowell, who was a guest on my podcast, who you and I both love, she wrote a savory baking book. America's Test Kitchen has done a savory baking book, but there are not a lot of savory baking books out there. And I am hopeful and optimistic that that is something that will really scratch a culinary itch that people didn't even realize needed itching. And again, because the recipes are easy and accessible, it's funny, I was constantly kind of battling with my editor a little bit because she was pushing the appetizer-y aspect of the book, and I was pushing the no, you can eat it for dinner because I have galettes in it and spoon breads and bread puddings and Yorkshire pudding. So I do have hefty enough baked goods that you could serve it for a meal. But I also do have like a snack chapter and a load of different savory cookies and crackers, like cheesy biscotti and a really yummy blue cheese cookie that has like a blue cheese thumb drop. So it's like a cookie made of blue cheese that you press your thumb into the center and fill with like a figgy jam. But just
that sounds so good. I love blue cheese and figs.
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite recipe.
I think right now I am loving cheesy Old Bay biscuits, but they're called Butter Swim biscuits. So if they have cheddar cheese, they have Old Bay seasoning, but they're called Butter Swim because you literally melt butter in a pan in the oven, add the biscuit batter on top of the melted butter, stick it back in the oven. The batter absorbs the butter. I don't even exactly know what happens in there, Kerry, but when you pull that out...
Gotta call Kenji Lopez.
I know exactly. Kenji, are you listening? Unbelievably delicious and just in a really easy peasy, unusual way of making a biscuit.
Huh.
And
Did you come up with that term?
Not at all. Butter swim biscuits are a thing. It's funny when you're researching a book and developing recipes for it. You know, there are a lot of recipes that you just come up with. Oh, I'm going to have like some little baby croissant here that I'm going to make from puff pastry, and I'm going to have biscotti that tastes like a Cheez-It, and I'm going to have a certain kind of olive oil salt cracker. But then there are a lot of things where you're like, okay, that's 70 recipes, but the book's supposed to have 100. And then I won't lie, I start a little Googling. So I just will Google like biscuits, unusual biscuits, unique biscuits, different biscuits, and see all the ones that come up. And so I discovered Butter Swim biscuits online.
How interesting. Never heard of those before. How did easy peasy become your thing?
Such a good question. It actually is totally me, Kerry. When I am home and I have to make something for a dinner party, for a friend, or for my sons, one of my kids, my husband, I don't want to do a project bake. And I just am assuming, hoping, have found that there are others who feel similarly.
So you and Claire Saffitz are not going to be making a croquembouche anytime soon.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
We also have your cookbook tour.
Yes.
To look forward to. The kickoff party is on the 24th. This is airing the day before.
Great.
So if there are still tickets left, you should go get one. It's going to be fun. What can people expect from this tour? You're making a lot of tour stops.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in New York that first week of September 24th, which is really fun. I'm doing like a collab cream cheese with pop-up bagels. So there'll be a cream cheese that they will have on sale from like the 18th of September through the 24th, which will be based on a recipe from my book. And I'm doing a cool donut collab with Wild Air, which I'm really excited about. I'll be at Union Square Green Market that Saturday selling books and giving everybody treats. I'm going to do something with Umber Mazadar. She's going to interview me, and they're going to have that Butter Swim biscuit on their menu. She's going to do a little Umber twist, I think, but that will be on the menu. I'm going to do a talk at Archestratus with Deb Perlman, who's been on the pod twice and on your pod.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm doing a great dinner at Eddie's Grocer on that Wednesday. But all of this information is available via my Instagram or via my website, which is both Jessie Sheehan Bakes.
We'll be doing something in Boston
together.
Then
I'm the luckiest person alive because I'm also working with Cherry Bombe on a bunch of different events that are kind of She's My Cherry Pie related, which is so amazing. I'm going to be in San Francisco on October 8th at Canteen, and I'm going to be in Chicago on the 15th at Mindy's Bakery, and I love Mindy. She was a guest, as was Nicole.
That was one of the best episodes.
Oh, I love her. We just were in love with each other. I don't know what happened. And then October 23rd in Boston with King Arthur and also with Cherry Bombe. And also I just want to...
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I also just want to thank Kerry Gold and King Arthur for supporting and sponsoring not only my podcast, but also the book tour.
Yes, we love those folks. Classy brands, great product.
I know. And I will be with Cherry Bombe at the end of the month at Jubilee Wine Country.
Yes, October 26th and 27th
Yes.
at Solage. That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, I'm really looking forward to the tour. Let's talk about your life as an author.
Yeah.
This is your fourth book.
It is.
How did you get into writing books?
Again, this is another, just to bring it full circle back to the discussion about what advice I would give people. It's you never know what you're getting from the job you're doing. You might think you're doing one thing and it ends up taking you off into a completely different path, which again is why, at least for me, I hate saying no because I just never know where the thing might go. Case in point, when I started working at the bakery in Brooklyn, and just to be clear, I started literally vacuum packing granola. They did not hand me a bowl and say, can you please make granola? They said, can you please pack our granola? And I couldn't even use the vacuum sealer. But the guys who owned that bakery They had just opened. The bakery got a lot of attention from Oprah and from Martha. They all said, oh my God, this is the best brownie at this bakery called Baked ever. So they were asked to write a cookbook. And when they started on that first book, they wrote 4, and I helped with all of them. But when they started on the first one, they wanted me to be their tester because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was a perfect home baker because I was an enthusiastic baker, but I didn't have a lot of experience. So I tested recipes for that book. Then the next book, they had me test but also develop recipes for the book, and we kind of went along from there. So I got into cookbook writing and met Matt and Nato's book agents, etc. Like, who knew? I didn't walk into that bakery thinking, I really love writing. I think I might want to be a cookbook writer at all. But that is where they led me, and that is where I ended up.
Sometimes people can see skills in you that you don't see in yourself.
100%, and something that I loved so much. I thought I just wanted to learn how to make granola. I didn't know I actually wanted to develop recipes for granola and then write about why I love granola and why I wrote the recipe I did.
And it turned out you enjoyed the process.
Loved it. Loved it. I still remember feeling so blessed that I was at home in my kitchen developing recipes for the bakery I worked at. They were paying me to do something I loved. It was just it was so exciting.
I feel like you haven't had an easy cookbook career.
Yeah.
I feel like you've had to fight kind of for each book.
It is so true.
Correct?
Yes. Partly, I think that is because the climate has changed so much. Partly, it may be that when I wrote my first book, which was called Icebox Cakes, it was co-written, and it came out in 2015, and I was such a newbie. I didn't quite even know what I was doing when that book came out. And again, it was a very different environment. Is it
Not
fair
as
to
many
say,
books, social media.
Yeah,
very
there was
different.
no social media. I mean, obviously people were writing cookbooks, but not like the way they are today. I'm not like food media. All of that didn't have sort of the power that it has today. I very quickly was able to write another book because the publishers, Chronicle Books, liked Icebox Cakes and they wanted me to write something else. And I wrote a book called The Vintage Baker. But I had a lot of trouble selling it. It just never sold that well, and therefore took a long...
Selling it to the public, not selling
Correct.
it to a publisher.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The publisher was on board with me doing the book, but it didn't end up doing all that well. Although it's kind of had a slow burn. I would say now it probably has done well and it's still in print. But Snackable Bakes was the first book I felt like I wrote. Partly, I think, why maybe it has done better than the rest is that it really, back to this question of why easy peasy, it really is so me. Both of these last 2 books flow out of me so easily because I'm just writing the things that I really want to be making. And I'm not writing for anybody else. I'm writing for myself and for the people that I think are going to enjoy what I enjoy. So I would say that, yeah, I've never been someone who wrote a book and everybody just went crazy for it and it sold 1 million copies and people were banging down my door. That book, Snackable Bakes, did become one of the New York Times best cookbooks of 2022. Kerry literally...
Oh, I remember that. That was so exciting.
I was ready to retire. I was like, I have arrived, everyone. I'm done. I will see you on the other side. But no, I did not retire. But I was so happy. There's something about that reinforcement from your peers that is just too good. But again, full circle to what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Of course I want that for this book. That may not happen for this book. I do say the secret to life is low expectations, and that really bums people out because they don't think I'm manifesting enough. But all I'm saying is...
Wait, did you just say the secret to life is low expectations? Okay.
My dad taught me that.
You and I are so different. It's so funny.
That's what my dad taught me. But I do feel like being able to visualize it not happening is as important for me as visualizing it happening. I can't afford to, nor do I want to go into a deep depression in December when the list comes out and my book's not on it. I'm finding that right now, Kerry, with reviews. The book is on the Esquire list, which is amazing. And the book is just written up in the Globe. Boston Globe is my hometown newspaper. And those hits are amazing. But I'm also not on a lot of lists. These roundups that media outlets do can be a little painful. But anyway, Snackable Bakes did well. And I was able, for the first time ever, to write a book and within a couple of months have another book deal. And that felt so amazing. Although, be careful what you wish for, because I was also so tired.
Oh.
I was like, write another book.
Cookbooks are hard.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are.
We learned that when we did the Cherry Bombe cookbook.
I know. When is the next one coming, Kerry? And I think it should be a baking one.
Has someone sent you to ask me that question? I've got a bunch of ideas. In fact, too many ideas.
Yeah.
The cookbook world has changed so much.
So much.
And I'm not a big fan of doing the same thing over and over again. I still have a lot of thinking
Yeah.
to do just about how we're going to do it and roll it out. And is there
Yeah.
a video component? I tend to kind of be a 360
Yeah.
thinker. I don't like to just put something out there and that's it. It's
Yeah.
like there's got to be the podcast
Yeah.
and the conference and the this and that. And that's not necessarily healthy. Sometimes like the thing can just be the thing.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to low expectations because
Yeah.
even though I laughed when you said that, one thing that I have definitely learned is not that you want to have low expectations or plan for the worst, but sometimes when you go into a new venture, you should really think to yourself, what's the best that can happen and what's the worst?
Yes.
And be prepared either way. Because I did not do that with Cherry Bombe or the restaurants that I
Yeah.
used to own. And I wish I had.
Yeah. It's funny, my therapist just said to me a few weeks ago, I was so worried about, again, back to this thing in the fall and in the spring, media outlets do these roundups of, quote, the best cookbooks of the fall or the best cookbooks of the spring, sometimes the best cookbooks of the year. And I was really starting to panic. How am I going to get through looking at those lists and not being on them? And she said to me, what's the worst that can happen? Your book isn't on a single list. Will you never write another cookbook? It's sort of what you're saying. Like,
Does it help for you to know that I don't even look at those lists?
Yes. Yes, it does.
I couldn't tell you what's on those lists.
Yes, it does.
And the only reason I even tell our team to look at them is to make sure we haven't missed anybody.
Yeah.
You know, because we like to celebrate Happy Pub
Yeah,
Day
yeah.
and make sure we're just on top of who is publishing books.
Yeah.
I never look at those and think, oh, why wasn't so-and-so on this list? Or
Yeah.
how did so-and-so get on this list?
Oh, that does make me feel better. That does make me feel better. But I think you're right. It might be managing expectations is better than saying low, because I do believe in manifesting. One thing I feel like you probably never get nervous, but one thing that happens to me professionally when I'm nervous, but I am very good at this point in my 50s of just being able to put on the kind of happy, enthusiastic, very confident, but also humble part of me and just assume that everything's going to go fine. I'm just aware of kind of almost working from the outside in. Rather than access the nervous feelings, I'm like, it's going to be great. What are you kidding? This is going to be great. Who are you kidding?
I do get nervous. I do find the more preparation I can do, the less nervous I get. But some people still make me nervous. And every time I have to interview Nigella Lawson, oh my God, she makes me so nervous. I love her so much. And she's one of my favorite people to interview. But she's so freaking smart.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And just her vocabulary.
Oh, I know. Well, her writing is incredible.
Yeah, she wrote for us like once or twice. And I just was like, I'm not going to edit a word of this.
Yeah.
We're just going to publish what she turned in. So yeah, sometimes people make me nervous, but preparation, folks, that helps.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. One thing I think that I have going for me or that helps me in this journey is that I am a really hard worker. I mean, not that we all aren't hard workers, but I do work hard, and I guess I have high expectations for myself, even if I have low ones for the rest of how the rest of the world is going to find me or think of me. But I do feel like I try to be very prepared so that I can be less anxious. Although sometimes, Kerry, I do find that I can trust myself. Like I am finding that some of these long scripts I'm writing for my interviews are flowing out of me a lot faster than they used to. And that is so thrilling. I remember Jocelyn Delk Adams, Grandbaby Cakes. Hi, Jocelyn.
Oh, we love Jocelyn.
Yeah, who was one of my first interviews ever. I think I spent literally 8, 9, 10 hours because I wanted to read every cookbook, because I have a lot of her books. I just wanted to know everything about her. She has a huge blog. I wanted to dig deep into the blog. And I don't need to do that anymore. And that feels really, really good.
Okay, Jessie, we're going to do a speed round.
Okay.
What beverage do you start your morning with?
Coffee with skim milk.
Skim milk?
I know.
Really? Why?
I think probably because I actually really like the taste of coffee. So I don't want the creamy, milky, heavy cream situation happening. And so the skim milk lightens it a bit, but doesn't overpower it.
What are you streaming right now?
Oh, such a good question. Interestingly enough, I'm actually, and I'm so proud of myself, I'm not watching TV. I'm reading all fours. Have you read it yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a must read.
Yeah, we need to talk offline.
Have you watched Drops of God on Apple TV Plus? Everybody out there?
What is Drops of God?
That's what I said. It came out last year. I don't know how I missed it. I'm not going to say anything except if you're in food, beverage, You should really watch it. It's so freaking good. And I think you can sign up for an Apple TV Plus trial.
I have Apple
and
TV.
Make sure you like it before you,
my God.
commit.
Thank you. I will say, talking food, I did, of course, binge watch The Bear in one day. Yeah.
But yes, Drops of God. If
Thank
you
you.
watch it and love it, DM me. Or even if you hate it, DM me because I want to know why. But it's fabulous. What's a treasured cookbook of yours?
I would say probably my most used is called Baking Illustrated. It's Cook's Illustrated baking book that they put out many, many years ago at this point.
What is always in your fridge?
Oh, gosh, skim milk.
You're killing me.
Also, honey, kale, because I make my kale prune. Hi, California prunes. I make my kale prune blueberry smoothie with lion's mane. Thanks, Justine, for the tip. Justine Snacks. She says to put lion's mane in your smoothies. I make that every day.
Is that a powder from the mushroom?
It's actually like a pill that you would swallow, but I just throw it in the smoothie. You can get it in any form.
And is it a mushroom? Am I correct in that?
And it's really good for your brain.
Yes, I know. We love our prunes because they are a sponsor of.
I know, but they're so delicious.
Yes, prunes really, we're going to sound like the ad. They really are good to snack on.
Oh my God, they're so delicious. I love them. And they're good for your bones.
I know you love that smoothie.
Yeah. So you will find kale.
That.
You will find kale. And then the blueberries are in my freezer.
Yeah, you talk about that all the time. What was your favorite food as a kid?
Pepperidge Farm raspberry turnovers that you put in the toaster oven. Oh my gosh. Even saying it out loud right now, I want one with vanilla ice cream. You cannot eat them by themselves.
Oh, I remember those. Do they still make them?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't give enough love to Pepperidge Farms. Milano mint cookies.
Oh my gosh, honey. And in Salty Cheesy, I use puff pastry a lot because it's a great, easy hack where you can get delicious, snacky, savory things baked. And Pepperidge Farm brand is actually vegan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know what they used to make that I can't find anymore? That thin white bread.
Oh.
I used to love that for like a fancy little tea sandwich, or I would make like a little egg sandwich with it, but it's really hard to find.
You know what I loved growing up too? Did you ever read Harriet the Spy?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so Harriet the Spy eats tomato sandwiches, which now are trendy and all over Instagram, but back in the day, you just learned about them from Harriet the Spy. There was no social media. Harriet had tomato sandwiches after school, and my mother always bought Pepperidge Farm white bread. I would have them on Pepperidge Farm white bread. Also, sorry, haters, Miracle Whip and tomatoes.
Jesse,
I know. Not
you
my
brought
choice.
My least two favorite things: Miracle Whip and skim milk. Ugh.
Carrie and I love each other.
What's your favorite snack food aside from prunes?
I really love Cape Cod potato chips. I adore
Classic.
them. Nothing is better.
What is your favorite kitchen implement? I will get every dish in my kitchen dirty, but you hate that.
I hate that so much, really, because I hate doing dishes. But anyway, my favorite is kind of obscure-ish, but not really for bakers. It is a tiny measuring tape. Because we often need to know, this is supposed to be 12 by 14 inches. How am I going to know? Oh, all the rounds are only supposed to be 3 inches each. How am I going to know? I am not someone who can be like, that's about 3 inches and get it right. I'm always horribly wrong. Or if you want, and this is not very me, but if you want every brownie that you cut to be exactly the same size, use your tiny baby measuring tape.
Huh, okay. That is very specific.
I know, it is kind of specific.
But interesting at the same time. Dream travel destination.
I have never been to Japan and have been talking about that with my husband and would love to go. The fashion, the food, the people, the landscape, everything about it is so appealing to me. I might say fashion number one, though. I'm obsessed with Japanese designer.
Food for me. It's at the top of my list. I can't wait to go there one day. Okay, last question. And I don't know how you're going to answer this. But if you had to be trapped on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
Okay, can it not be a food celebrity?
No, it has to be a food celebrity. Why? Who do you want to be trapped with?
Oh my God, I want to be trapped on the desert island with the cast of Arrested Development. Because I just want to laugh, Carrie. I'm like, if I'm on a desert island.
You can't find a funny food celebrity? They exist.
Can you help me find one? Can I be with my friend Samantha Seneviratna?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I love Sam so much. We have a really good time together. We would probably need some wine. But yes, I want to be with Sam.
Oh, that's a great answer. We love Samantha Seneviratna. Beautiful cookbook, beautiful person. She was on our cover last year.
Yes.
Yeah, she's got a show on the Magnolia Network. Well, Jessie, you really are the best. You make me laugh. And you've done such a beautiful job with your baking podcast, She's My Cherry Pie. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being here today and congrats on the book.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for everything that you have shared with me over the years.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to follow Radio Cherry Bombe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating and a review. Let me know what you think about the show and who you would love to hear from on a future episode. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Elizabeth Vogt. Our associate producer is Jenna Sadu. And our content and partnerships manager is London Crenshaw. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.